And welcome back to Cavuto Coast-to-Coast. I'm David Asman in for Neil Cavuto. Markets down today on trade uncertainty, and if 2020 candidates have their way, investors may pull back a little more. Senator Elizabeth Warren drafting a bill to block mega mergers as Joe Biden is proposing $1 trillion in new corporate taxes and individual taxes. So is the push for higher taxes going to push away voters? To Catalina magazine publisher Kathy Aru, Point View Wealth Management President David Dietz, and former Ted Cruz campaign pollster Chris Wilson. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. Kathy, I hear you're in Florida, so I hope it's nice and warm down there. We're freezing up here. I remember...
I'm sorry.
That's all right. No problem. We love New York. I remember Walter Mondale. I'm old enough to admit that I remember him saying on the campaign trail that he would raise taxes, coming out openly and saying that in 1984. This was when Ronald Reagan was running for a second term.
Right.
That didn't turn out too well for Walter Mondale. If you look at one reason why he lost 49 out of 50 states, a lot of people point to him saying he was going to raise taxes. Now you have Joe Biden saying the same thing. How do you think that's going to affect him?
Well, Joe Biden is saying he's going to raise taxes for corporations.
And
he's
individuals.
not saying he's going to raise taxes
He's going to raise the highest rate for individuals as well.
Well, the wealthiest is, from what I understand, he's trying to make the difference from the wealthiest and corporations. And corporations did just fine when they had higher taxes. The economy does just fine. Corporations survived 4 years ago. The economy was doing great. So a corporation going from 21%, 23%, not a big deal. So if we were doing well with higher taxes with these corporations and these individuals, we'll be just fine. We could have higher taxes and a good economy because we had it with Obama.
Now, Chris, one of the reasons why corporate tax rates were lowered is because so many corporations left the United States because our corporate tax rate was higher, much higher than the average corporate tax rate in the world. And you had places like Ireland, which a lot of companies, particularly pharmaceuticals, among others, were going to. When the corporate rate was lowered under the Trump plan to 21%, a lot of those companies came back to the United States. So, in fact, the economy is doing better now because of that, is it not?
Well, it is, and that's why we have 7 million jobs that need to be filled and only half that many people who are looking for jobs. It's had a tremendous impact on our economy, but this is really a classic mistake that's made by presidential campaigns in which they try and get as far to one edge or the other, in this case, move as far to the left so they can win a primary and try and generate some enthusiasm from the left that is pro-tax increase. And then they'll have to try to roll that back when they get to the general election because it's going to be very unpopular with an electorate that's pleased with where the economy is going. But, you know, big greedy corporations are a nice populist ploy, and it excites the left. But when it gets down to it, these are individuals, these are people, they're jobs, and if their tax rate is increased, there's going to be a lot of people who are put out of work that are going to be upset about it, and then you're going to see the economy start to decline.
Well, and David, the top rate, Kathy was saying it's just for the wealthy. A lot of the people who are in business claim their income as a personal income, not in a corporate sense, and therefore they are going to be affected. A lot of these people don't live like wealthy people. They don't buy fancy new Mercedes every year. They put all their money back in their family business.
Yeah, absolutely, David. So, you know, taking a sledgehammer against corporations and those who employ people and have small businesses is completely counter to what the American people want. The American people want us to grow that economic pie. So when you take money away from corporations and employers, you're going to have less people employed. You're going to have less capital investments. You're going to shrink that pie. That really makes no sense at all. And, of course, that's going to have an adverse effect on the stock market. When you look at the pensions, the endowments, people's 401ks, that's contrary to what people are working so hard for here in this country.
Well, meanwhile, Joe Biden just getting an endorsement from former Secretary of State John Kerry, but other top Obama officials are endorsing Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Last hour, President Obama's top economic advisor, Austin Goolsbee, told me about his support for Mayor Pete. Take a listen. So why Mayor Pete
thanks for having me back, David.
Over the former vice president?
As I got to know him, I've been impressed, and the country needs somebody who's not from that D.C. Beltway kind of experience. As I said, if you don't say I'm going to offer everything free to everybody, it allows you to concentrate a little more and spread it onto to the people that are hardest hit.
So, Kathy, it wasn't long ago when the party, the Democratic Party, seemed to be moving far to the left. It looks like now moderates are taking back center stage in the Democratic Party. Am I right?
Well, yeah, it looks like they do want a moderate candidate. So Mayor Pete is that moderate. He's a fresh face. And by not endorsing Biden, which he worked with, that kind of shows you he wasn't very impressed with Biden. So this is a strike against Biden, but a plus for Mayor Pete. He's moderate, and they seem to like him more than Biden,
Well, Chris, will
unfortunately,
a
for
moderate
Biden.
be harder to beat for Donald Trump?
Well, it is, but I don't think I'd put Buttigieg in that category as being a moderate. I think that shows how far left the Democratic Party has moved, that you've got somebody like a Pete Buttigieg who we're now classifying as a moderate. But really, from a campaign standpoint, a political standpoint, which is kind of the prism which I analyze these things, this is another massive failure by the Biden campaign. I mean, with all due respect to Goolsbee and Love and the others, these were not high-level officials in the Obama administration. They're people that should have been wrapped up pretty early from the Biden campaign in terms of endorsements. And the fact that they've let that happen, let these people move on and endorse other candidates, I think is, while you've got Joe Biden saying, oh, I don't even want Obama's endorsement, just shows what a tailspin that campaign is in right now, and the enthusiasm is moving to the other candidates. And I think that is right. The Democrats' best chance to win is probably with Joe Biden. And right now, he seems to be running the worst campaign and is the candidate that I think is going to be, as an individual, the easiest for Donald Trump to beat in a one-on-one matchup.
But David, what about Wall Street? Because everybody assumes, popular culture assumes that Wall Street are all Republicans, but that's not true. There are a lot of Democrats on Wall Street. Are they now beginning to pour money into Joe Biden that they were reluctant to do so a couple of months ago?
Well, certainly, but I mean, this latest development is a real slap in the face to Joe Biden, because when you look at what Buttigieg represents, here's a young, inexperienced person managing like a fifth-rate city in the United States. And of course, the other thing that's very troubling for, I think, all Americans is his track record with minorities. If you ask minorities in his city whether they're satisfied with what his outreach has been, I think you're going to be very disappointed in the answer.
All right. But again, he is getting a lot of support right now, and a lot of money is going his way, too. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi asking House Democrats to proceed on articles of impeachment. Listen.
The facts are uncontested. The president abused his power for his own personal political benefit at the expense of our national security by withholding military aid and crucial Oval Office meeting in exchange for an announcement of an investigation into his political rival.
But remember when she said this at the beginning of the year?
If and when the time comes for impeachment, it will have to be something that has such a crescendo in a bipartisan way.
So, Chris, Speaker Pelosi going ahead with a completely partisan impeachment, something she said she wouldn't do. What do you think changed her mind?
Well, look, I don't think anybody who was observing this from a political standpoint thought that the impeachment would not move forward. It's not as if anyone looked at it and said, oh, the Democrats can analyze and maybe they'll come to a conclusion that we shouldn't move forward on impeachment. This was always going to happen. But to your point, it's remarkable. Doug Collins just tweeted a little while ago that he was just asked for his witness list by Jerry Nadler, and they haven't even been heard yet. So they're moving forward without even hearing witnesses from the Republican sides, which shows the partisan aspects of what Speaker Pelosi is doing. But one other thing I do think that's been fascinating is you're starting to see cracks in Democrat coalition. You've got 31 Democrats in districts that Trump won that did not want to see this happen. They don't want to have to vote on that. And in fact, you're looking at swing states, and I'll use Wisconsin as an example, where a Marquette poll just came out that shows the number of people who are opposed to impeachment have now doubled. So you can't put all that together. I think Pelosi felt pressure that she had to move this forward quickly because she saw her coalition, her Democratic caucus, starting to collapse. And the biggest concern for her is that she takes this to the floor and loses, which would be catastrophic
to
her future as Speaker.
What do you think caused the about face? I mean, she said she wouldn't go ahead with impeachment unless it was bipartisan. Right. It is zero bipartisan. They have no Republicans voting for impeachment. So what do you think changed your mind?
Well, I actually wrote an op-ed for Fox opinion pages on this topic, begging, as a Democrat, begging Speaker Pelosi, someone who I've interviewed, to please not do the impeachment, not go with the impeachment hearings, because the voters should decide. However, I think she gave in because she was listening to the squad. People are very guilty of listening to those vibrations coming from a certain party or party, and I think the squad was giving her those good vibrations, and she didn't go with her gut. She listened to the squad. She listened to AOC, less experienced freshman in Congress. She made the wrong decision. This impeachment is taking away the voters' right, the Democrats' right to kick Trump out. It's our turn, not Congress's turn, to kick him out. And we don't have the votes in the Senate. It's not going to happen anyway.
No, it won't happen in the Senate. But just
time.
to continue with you, Kathy, for a second here, what about those Democrats in red districts? Is there a chance that Speaker Pelosi won't be Speaker after this election?
It's going to be a big disappointment, and in the op-ed I did write that it is going to be a loss for the Democratic Party, because this is a no-win situation. The last two presidents to be impeached never left office. So if he is impeached, if Trump is impeached, he's not going to leave. Pelosi has disappointed the country, her party, all of us who have supported her for all this time. This is a big mistake. Yeah,
David,
absolutely.
Does Wall Street care at all about that? We showed earlier in the broadcast, we showed how, in fact, during the Clinton administration, the market kept going up. So an impeachment doesn't necessarily augur badly for the markets, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think Kathy nailed it there, because there's no sign this other than totally partisan, that there's no movement on the part of the Senate Republicans. Wall Street's concerned, though, that we are just kind of wasting time here. You know, maybe that's a good thing. The less Washington does, the better. But there are things that Washington should be doing. For example, an infrastructure bill. For example, finalizing that treaty with Mexico and Canada. And to that extent, I think Wall Street's disappointed with what's going on there in terms of the impeachment.
Well, Chris, we hear Nancy Pelosi now still saying that you can investigate and legislate at the same time. Do you think it's possible that, to follow through on that promise, she may actually put USMCA up for a vote?
Well, it's a great question. And I think what's going on right now is her members are back home in their districts. They went home for Thanksgiving, and they got a lot of grief from their constituents about not moving legislation forward. And USMCA is a perfect example of that. And so, yes, I do think it becomes more likely that is pushed through, because they have to be able to show, when they go back home for Christmas, they've got to be able to show that they did something, or you're going to have certainly 31 Democrats in Trump districts who are going to have a very unpleasant Christmas.
What a great panel. You're a terrific panel. We're going to have you back for more later in the hour. Thank you very much.